I want to grow. Like, if it doesn't hurt, you're not growing. You're going to get lucky whenever you put yourself in a situation to be lucky.
I don't know what I'm doing. We don't know what the heck we're doing, but we're doing our best.
As iron sharpens iron, one man sharpens another.
I want to help people. That's why I do it.
At that point, Lopez rips his shirt off and he's like, hold on, this is my last resort.
There's just no duplication for hard work. There's no duplication for doing the right things.
Succeed and then put your hand back and help someone else. We're all over the place, just a group of friends trying to all connect and help each other grow. Welcome back to the Men in the Arena. We have our cast back again. We have Ryan Cowan, Tyler Douglas, Connor Meekins, and myself, Stephen Lopez. Today, what we're going to talk about is creating good habits. It's something that all of us pretty much live by every day. I know that there's some habits in my life that I've really become accustomed to doing. So one of the habits that I wanted to start off with is working out. It's one habit that I find a lot of people that are successful in life typically have as a staple in their day and their week. One person that I definitely would say that has this in their day is The Rock. If you watch any of his podcasts or if you watch or follow any of his social media, he talks about every day. Starting his day, people are sleeping and he's working out. I find it pretty interesting that in life, that is how he has become successful and continued to do that. Doesn't matter how busy he is, that's one thing that he talks about. He needs his gym. He travels with, I forget how many thousands of pounds of workout equipment. So it's pretty amazing that even as busy as that guy is, doing 10 different movies at once, he's still able to work out and have that staple. I know that Meekins, that's something that you would definitely agree with because you work out just as much as I do, if not more.
Yeah, so I like that you brought up The Rock, man, and his foundation of what he's built for his body and his mind has been something that he's carried with him everywhere, man, and it's become kind of his story in a way. So everything that he built is what people see him for now, and every time he has one of those great workouts, he feels inspired and he wants to go share that inspiration back, which just goes to show you, like, habits, man. You can just take that and you can carry that energy and share it with the world. You know.
Yeah, definitely. Ryan, do you have any habits that you typically do once every day or something along those lines?
Yeah, I wrote a book that was pretty, I guess, fundamentally changing for me last year called The Miracle Morning. That's had a big impact on me. So getting up early has been that habit really for me as far as weekdays are concerned, I suppose. So getting up early, being very deliberate in how I kind of approach my pre-work routine has been important for me. It's changed up a little bit. I've been reading a lot this year, so I've made a point this year of reading 52 books. That's my goal. So one a week. So I've had that be a kind of a staple of my morning most of the time. But again, like you said, working out can mean a lot of things too for different people. Just staying active for me is what that means. I don't necessarily lift to the extent that any of the three of you do or others in our group, but I'm always active. So be it playing basketball consistently, if it's golf season for me, walking when I play. I'm just being sure that at some point in my day, I'm being active. I'm doing something to kind of get the blood flowing and moving around. It's been important for me too. So as far as mornings are concerned, just being sure that I'm up a few hours early, and my time at work, when I get into work, it doesn't feel like my day is just starting. It feels like it's the middle of the day for me has been a differentiator. And I think it's been quite obvious with those that I work with that there's never a morning where I'm just rolling out of bed and walking in. I'm ready to go the second I get in, which is generally before everyone else. So I think that sets a tone too for the people around you.
And I can relate to that a lot as well. So many times people talk about working out, they think of strictly just lifting weights. And then although it's something that I've enjoyed as well, I've started in the last, honestly, even 30 days or so, the habit of running in the morning. And they talk about the runner's high, going into work after you've gotten your blood flowing, and even if it's a mile or two outside, even in some colder temperatures, when you're fully awake and you go in your office and everyone else is sluggish and hungover from Sunday, and you go in tomorrow and you're ready to go, you've already been awake, like you said, but you even have just that runner's high. It makes you energetic, makes you happy. So you're immediately Monday morning happy and ready to go.
It's just like Ryan, the same thing we always talk about, man. It's the whole make your bed scene. It's like, you've talked about, if you can give me the name of the guy who wrote that book, if you would.
It's on my bedside over here. I'll
Yeah.
grab it for you.
It's
I can't remember his name.
It's a war general. It's a guy who spent a lot of time teaching discipline and instilling discipline in the minds of people who needed it. So it's like, you got to get up and you got to have a purpose. But make your bed is essentially just something that allows you to form that trigger that says, okay, if I get out of bed, force myself to make it, I'm suddenly starting my day, the gears are turning. And if I actually create a checklist and write that down and I check that first mark off the list, it's like, okay, now we're starting to get a little bit of a rhythm, so that cue and that trigger becomes sort of a routine, which eventually, if you're looking at like the habit loop, becomes habit forming, and it positively reinforces that this is doing good things for your life. And if you want to touch any more on the discipline behind, because I kind of want to ask, what does it take for people who aren't getting up early in the morning to establish that mental muscle of like, how do we get up? Because it's hard if you don't have that routine built,
Yeah, it's William McRaven, by the way, is the author of that book, and he's got a really good video that went viral of him giving a speech at a graduation, and I think it might have been the Naval Academy. But yeah, I can appreciate the need for your mind to get going. And we worked on, Connor and I specifically, deliberate practice earlier in the year. And what that meant for me was spending at least 30 minutes a day deliberately doing one thing, getting better at one thing, be it practicing guitar or shooting free throws was it for me for a while. So in the mornings, I was shooting 100 and 150 free throws with my mind on nothing but that. And my mind got going to an extent. My body got going because I was moving physically at 5:30 in the morning. But something that's really irreplaceable for me is getting into a book in the morning and actually really getting the mind muscle moving. I think is extremely important for that checklist, right? So.
Yeah, I think one thing, in my opinion, that creates a good habit is just getting up early, like what we were describing. I know that you guys know with how much I drive and where I'm going, I have to be up sometimes at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and I might go to bed at 12. So I joke around and I say sleep for the week. And you'll see that I post that on my social media network. Like I jokingly say that, but then you guys will hang out with me for a weekend and it's like, dude, you've been up since 4:30 and then you just drove here and like we were up till 4 again last night and then you're just up again. Like I really do feel that sleep is for the week. And if you tell yourself that enough, it's funny how you can trick your own mind into thinking, oh, I don't need that. I'm fine. I'm good to go. And just like you were talking about earlier before the call, Douglas, if someone says something enough, it sticks. The mind is such a powerful thing. And whenever you tell yourself, I'm good, this is fine, I don't need this. It's funny how you can trick yourself.
You're subconsciously reinforcing that. Yeah, it's like a deeper layer of how you're, how you can interpret it. So I think that's absolutely right, Steve. That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I think you put yourself in a position to also, because you've been doing it for so long in so many different facets, not just with sleep, but with working out, with schoolwork, when you've got to get that grade that maybe you could get away with a C, but you want to get an A. You've, for a long period of time, convinced yourself that I can tell myself anything and I will do it because I said so. I think one thing that's tough for people that maybe haven't had that experience is our need as a society for instant gratification. They see someone like yourself telling yourself, I can do whatever I want. And it might not work the same way for them because they haven't created those habits over years and years and years. So there's this false expectation that it's just that easy. Well, it's just that easy if you make it just that easy over a redundant period of time of doing the right things in every facet of life. So
and I love
that's
that.
important for people to know.
It transitions into kind of what I wanted to say too, which is we've all said, or I've heard from each of you separately, of course, we're all young people trying to be successful, and that's what this is about. But we've all said if we were in college now, we'd have 4.0s or close to it. But what does that really mean? That means that now, because of what you just said, we formed these successful habits that maybe we didn't have or we were still forming years ago. And it just goes to show you now, how can we carry that out through the rest of life? Though? What else? What is that 4.0 technically, metaphorically going to be?
Well, I also think what it comes down to is you just have a better knowledge. You're before what we were doing is we were in college. Why? We didn't know why. It was like, what'd you want your degree in? I wanted to be a professor of psychology. That's what I wanted to do. But then once you take a couple courses, you're like, all right, well, I'm going to switch to this. So it's all like kind of what we've talked about in other calls is your why, which is really important. So finding your why. But one other thing that I do, and I'm sure you guys see, is I'll make breakfast every morning. Whether it be 8 eggs or 10 eggs, 4 eggs, you never know. But the reason why I post it is in my head, if I see someone else do something, if they can do it, I can do it. And that's just the way my thought process is. I don't know why, but I feel that if I post that and someone sees Steven's up at 4:30 in the morning, like one of you guys, you're like, geez, what? He's a psycho. Like, how can he even do that? Making breakfast, getting ready. I wanted to push someone. I want one person to see it and then be like, gosh, if he can do it, I can do it. If he can
I like that you brought that up, the social media side of it, because one thing that I was thinking about is I'm thinking about this topic in general is people can have a negative thought towards others who are constantly posting things like that. They can say, okay, well, it's kind of annoying. Well, the voting thing recently was a great example for me. We've, as a generation, we have to create this habit of going to the polls and voting because young people so consistently haven't done that. And it's hard to create a habit when it only comes around every 2 years. So I think a lot of times we get siloed into thinking that a habit is something that you do every day or every morning or multiple times a day, when there are a lot of things out there that need to be habits that you really don't have the luxury of doing daily. I think for me, voting, being someone who's very into politics, that's a great example. We have to turn that into, well, of course I'm going to vote. Of course I'm going to put the ability I have to kind of affect public discourse. Of course I'm going to do that. Why wouldn't I? Well, the social media trend of the I voted sticker, I think is fantastic because it does the exact same thing that you are doing to others when you're posting your breakfast at 4:30 or you're going and driving at 4 o'clock in the morning. You're showing that it's possible. I can do it, and you probably should be doing it too if you want to be successful. So just on a larger scale, on a more, I guess, a longer timeline, that's a habit as well that we need to form and think of things like habits and not just short instant gratification frames, but as well as things like voting, where it's every couple of years. So I think it has a big impact when you're showing others it's possible.
So there's macro and then there's micro level stuff that we do, right? So the habits that we form are macro and then there's micro. So I'm going to pull from our last conversation about networking a little bit and say that that's a more macro level. Like in the grand scheme of things, you want to teach yourself how to go into a group of people and assert yourself as somebody who can hold a conversation, who can bring that positive energy and spread that, share that light, whatever your message is with those other people. Bring your why into it, kind of like very subtly do that. But that becomes a habit too of going into those fearful situations and putting yourself out there to learn more about that person in the world. If you keep saying, oh, maybe next time, that becomes a habit pretty quick too. So get out there, try it.
Go ahead, Douglas.
Really just agreeing with you on that one. Very, very much, it's very possible to just say we'll do that tomorrow. And tomorrow becomes the next day and the next day. So
plus all you guys are in sales. I mean, as am I. And it's like, if we go into the day and think about and we look at the phone and we look at the prospecting list and the funnel and stuff like that, and we're worried about what the person's going to say. And we're just thinking about all the things that could go wrong. How often does that form a habit in your mind? And it's like, oh, you don't need to call today. You can just do other maintenance work. You can work on the existing book. You can do all this other stuff. And it's like, no, the sharks have already eaten up your mind, man. Like they've gotten into your system and they've taken over. So you've got to let that lion take over in your mind and say, let's get after it. Let's go. It's time.
Yeah, there's a reason why the Just Do It slogan is so popular. You know what I mean? There's a reason why that is blown up into what it is today. It's literally just making the choice. And I don't know about you guys, but whenever I wake up that early, no one's up. There's no one to really talk to. So what I do is I watch motivational videos. I've probably seen, it's now at this point, it's like stuff I've already seen, but it just gets me going. And it's something that I benefit from just because I run a division of a company. No one's telling me what to do, what time to get up. I don't have to be in an office. If I don't want to cover a case, I don't have to go. So it just like what you're describing, the line in me, I need that going. I need some force pushing me harder every day because no one's going to do it for me. I don't have to show up. So one thing I do as well, another good habit, is writing things down. Like I have a journal where I just write down daily what I'm doing, what I plan to accomplish, how I'm going to accomplish it. And sometimes it's to where I'm micromanaging myself. I will go into such detail where it's like cook breakfast, after breakfast, I need to get to this place after that. Because with me, everything is time related. So with being an outside salesman, I have to drive to different locations. So if I need to go to Kalamazoo, I need to know that it's an hour away. I need to leave an hour and 15 minutes early to get there at 7 a.m. I have to leave at what? Like 6. So I need to plan accordingly. And I figured out that that is a staple in my day and it really helps me achieve my goals.
Steve, that's just it. That's the perfect example of the micro level habits leading to the macro level results. Like what we just talked about. Thank you for that segue. That was beautiful because it's like that is you doing these little micro habits every single day, checking the list, checking the boxes, and in your mind you're like, all right, now I got this. Now I got that traction, man. I want to take this and share that message with the world and go make others better and make myself better. Like that's it right there. So
Where do you guys see other people struggling from a habit perspective? What do you think is maybe one of the biggest instant improvement opportunities that there's out there for others that we're surrounded with constantly?
They haven't made a decision. They in their mind, they haven't just like truly made a decision that this is what it takes to get me to the next level. And it's a lot because of like one of the first conversations we had about fear, the fear of what might happen if you step out of your comfort zone. Like, how many times in a day are we like, man, that would make me pretty uncomfortable to go talk to that person who's elite status. I just don't know how that's going to make me feel or how I'm going to look in that situation. So I think it's just making a decision. You really have to just step into it.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think a little bit of people just being lost too. We talk about writing our goals down to achieve them, but as far as the habits go, your morning really starts the night before. You have to know what you're doing the next day to a point. And in a way, that's writing down the goal of at least on a small level the next morning, if not even the afternoon. Going to bed, having your goals written down becomes.
Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree. I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the blade. How about that Abe Lincoln quote? It's all about preparation.
Yeah. No, that's an awesome quote.
Yeah.
One thing that's interesting to me whenever, like what you were just describing, just taking action with this, like whenever we have all talked about doing a podcast or doing something together, you know what I mean? It was something that we all were passionate about and we really wanted to do it. And I love talking to you guys. You guys are some of my best friends and I miss seeing you guys, but we needed to take the first step in doing it. And what did that take? Just, hey, we're doing this today. I'm done procrastinating and we're going to make this happen. And I think that is something that people do so often. There's a quote and it says I think it's like the best ideas are in the grave. Where you can find the best ideas, it's in the grave area because so many people talk about doing something and never do it.
Mm.
And,
wow, that's deep, Steve.
Yeah, and that's how it is, man. And it's one of the motivational speakers that I listen to. That's what he talks about. He said, you want to find the best ideas in the planet? They're all waiting on people to make a choice. Like, that's what it is.
I've known that the other quote is I've known a great amount of troubles in my life, most of them which never even existed. So like it's an old man, somebody who's gone through life, and it's like he seemed like it seemed like there was so many things, like so many interruptions, so many things going wrong, but he created most of those struggles in his mind. They were never actually there.
I think a good example to speak to the fear side of things as well as Lopez, what you were saying, Tim Ferriss, if any of you guys read his books, follow his stuff, anything like that, he's a big believer in fear setting. I wish I could have been on the fear conversation, because when I was watching it back, I had so many points that I just wanted to jump in, because fear setting is such a cool exercise where he basically takes, let's say he has this big fear of, if I'm selling to a certain C-level and I don't want to say the wrong things and screw up the entire sales cycle. For him, it's like, well, write down what your biggest fear is. And then from there, understand what is the cost of inaction? What is it going to cost you if you do nothing? And then what is the absolute worst thing that can happen? For me, moving to Dallas, moving to Fort Myers, Florida first, before I moved here, it was a very short period of time. And Lopez, you've moved away. Connor, you've moved away as well. Like, it's a very short period of time for me in which I had to make a decision. Am I going to move? So in my head, I went through this fear setting exercise without even realizing it. What is the worst thing that can happen to me if I move away and let's say I fail in Fort Myers and now in Dallas? Well, I've got a very supportive family. I'm extremely lucky with that. So literally worst case scenario for me is I can move home and restart and reset. For others, I'd be homeless because they don't have that backbone that I do, and I'm lucky enough to have. So for me, thinking to myself, well, is it worth the risk of maybe failing? Well, yes, it is, because the worst case scenario is not me living on the streets. It's me with a supportive family to kind of back me up in the time of failure. Not surprisingly, but I haven't failed to this point. I don't anticipate doing so. But in the moment, as you're about to make that choice, if you're afraid to make that leap, what truly is the worst case scenario? It's usually not that bad.
Just goes to show you the power of writing things down too, and just trying to bring something to life to see what it actually is. Like if somebody's ever going through a tough time and they're having all these thoughts that are kind of taking over their mind, try to write them out on paper, man. Write out fear, write out anxiety, write out failure. What's the worst thing that could happen? And start to study those words. Study what they really mean. Look them square in the writing that you're putting on paper and say, like, what are you? And then just know that you're bold enough to own that situation, that word, that thing that keeps trying to bite you and pull you down. You know,
generally that's what's going to stop you from creating good habits. And I think when you write things like that down, it allows you to be in the place of mind to facilitate good habits and to begin good habits and put them into action. So
I own this situation. I'm going to make this decision. That's what it takes, right?
Yeah. And one thing that I love is our group. So typically you have a group of people, you know, even if they're best friends, a lot of the times people bring each other down. It's Canlin's going to go to Dallas. You know, people may try to bring you down and be like, dude, you shouldn't go. Like, all of your friends are here. Like, wouldn't you rather stay here? And what did all of us say? Dude, that's awesome. Yeah. Like, go make it happen. Like, we'll come visit you. We'll do whatever. As soon as you were there, I came, in a week?
Yeah.
Meekins, I came to see you in a week as well, or whatever. Like, I want to see everyone succeed. I don't have anything bad to say about anybody. Look, you know, we're all living our own lives. If you guys ever need anything, like what you were describing, your family, even if your family wasn't working out, call me. Dude, you could crash on my couch. Whatever you need, you know, and that's the type of friends that we have, which I think is awesome. We're just a group of guys that are willing to watch each other succeed and, you know, do this, talk to each other, try to help each other whenever we're struggling. That's just how we are. And I think it's an awesome thing that we have.
Don't let that illusion of safety keep you from doing that thing you know is going to make you grow. Like, you know, it's just so important.
Yeah, definitely. And, you know, if someone's watching and it's a question to them is why does it matter about us talking about this? Really, we're just trying to help people. Like, we're helping each other while still, you know, maybe someone will watch this and they'll be like, you know, I have been struggling in that. You know, I wanted to be in finance, and I see Meekins who moved to Chicago to follow that dream. You know what I mean? And in turn, you know, I know what you want to do. I know you want to get into fitness, but people talk about, oh, I'm going to get into fitness, but yet they think that it's just going to flourish into that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You just have to check some boxes on your way to that.
Right.
And if there's someone out there that's looking to, just get some insight. That's all we're trying to do. Just help one person.
I think one thing I've found is there's a lot of there's stigmas probably created through university and things like fitness, for example, feeling like, oh, well, I'm not quite there yet. I'm not quite ready to make this leap, that leap. Oh, I only went to Kent State University. I couldn't possibly work for Deloitte because it's all Harvard grads that work there. Or I couldn't possibly do this or that based on my circumstance. Well, it's anything that, from what I've found so far, is that there really are no limitations. There are a lot of people who may be considered underqualified who are overproducing in jobs compared to people who are overqualified that are underproducing. If that makes sense. I think it's so important to let fear go and let these things that there's a lot of stigmas that allow us to be lazy in situations, that allow us to not create habits because we tell ourselves there's no way that I could possibly get a job in management for Garden within a year and a half. Of course not.
It goes to show you the power of the human mind, man. Like what you tell yourself and how it becomes the way you perform and what you do on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Keep telling yourself, and it's back on the habits conversation, man. If you made that decision that you're not going to get up today, I bet it's going to be hard to get up tomorrow too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably harder.
Yeah, and you know what? You kind of are what you think you deserve too. My family and I talk about, my cousins, I should say, and I talk about this because we came from like more of a blue collar side where maybe our parents or our grandparents all did like factory work. But then what made us decide that we're not going to do that? We're going to achieve more. Whereas they still kind of have the mindset of, oh, that's for the millionaires. Well, who says we can't be millionaires? Well, that's for them. That's how those people did that. Like the business owner. Well, who says I can't be the business owner? What did they do differently? So it's you writing yourself off before even giving it a chance. People do
There's
that.
so many times when I ask people that we have a lot of interns that work for us that are still in college, or we'll have people that are their first year out of college. And it's like, well, what do you want to do? It's like, well, I have a degree in finance. It's like, that has nothing to do with the question I just asked you.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? And I'll tell you how you can get there. Granted, I'm still getting places. I'm still learning. I'm still putting habits into place that I want to help me get to really my end goal. But that being said, there's so many people that limit themselves and they don't understand the value and the power of good habits and how they can get you places that you feel like you probably don't deserve to get. And that's really the impact that I've seen habits have on my life. Places that 2 years ago, I would have told you, no way. Good habits have got me there, though.
That's the beauty of this whole thing, though, man. We're all going through the struggle together. Like the ability for us to come together as a group of people to try to share a message with anybody who's willing to listen. Like we're going through this too. Like some days suck. Like Steve, Cowan, we've talked about being away from home and how bad that like some days are just tough. Like and I talk to you, Douglas, too. Like on the phone, I'm like, man, miss you guys. Like I want to come back. Like some days it is difficult being out there and being alone. But you look at that and you weigh out how much it's done for you, and it's like, okay, I'm starting to see how much that's worth now.
Yeah.
Well, think about it, guys. It's like callousing the mind. It's something we've talked about, and that's really what life is. Everyone has this view of maybe Ryan Cowan's life and how it is just perfect. He's got this great job, and he now lives in Dallas in an awesome apartment, but you don't know the struggle it took to get there. You don't know the daily struggle it takes just thinking about it, and it's like that in every position. It doesn't matter if you're the executive of a company or, you're just the salesman on a team. Everything isn't as it seems, as I would say. And just like what we were talking about creating habits, you just have to create a habit of telling yourself, I'm good. I'm the best at this. I'm going to achieve this. I'm going to make this happen. One thing you were talking about earlier, Brian, about, someone who maybe wasn't the smartest person or lacks in something. Hard work is going to trump that. It doesn't matter. Just because, I didn't get a 4.0 at Kent State University. I graduated with a 3.7, I think, which was great, but I could have gotten a 4.0. I didn't take the hardest classes on the planet. I just took business management. I liked it though. That's my end goal, is to be in management and run a company. But I will work harder than anyone I know. Maybe not than you guys. We're all in the same boat. There's a reason why we're all really tight, because we all have that work ethic. we all are willing to push ourselves to crazy limits, because I know if you can do it, if you can do it, or if you can do it, I can do it. And that's just how it is.
Thinking at that CEO level is a habit too, like, and just to kind of touch on your point, Douglas, if somebody's decided that, that person's more qualified than me, or, they're this and they're that. Well, sure they are. You just said that. Like, if that's that just reinforced itself.
You said
you ever could, you know what I mean? So the mind, it just goes to show you again, like the mind is extremely powerful. Like, so you tell yourself that, and that's the way you're gonna think. So what do you do? What are the steps you take? Well, all right, pick up a book. Let's see what, one of the greats has done. Tony Robbins, how does he do it? He says you can take modeling and you can model somebody who's gone that path already, and you can study their patterns and you can see what they've done to get to that level. And it's like, okay, now I'm starting to get the hang of this. Now I'm starting to think at that CEO level. Now we're on level playing field in the mind, so I can get there in the body, so it's like it all comes full circle.
I think habits are super interesting in a sales perspective, because I feel like every company I've worked for, it's always, what are the top performers doing and how can we replicate that? And it always comes down to, there's no magic bullet. If you're not putting the work in, you won't get there.
Yeah.
It's just so funny that time and time again, company over company, they're trying to find the magic bullet and it doesn't exist.
Yeah.
It's not real.
Well, the funny part is they're investing millions and millions and millions of dollars. But really, all they need to do is make sure people are happy with their job. What can we do for you? And there's a reason why some models are more successful than others. Like if you look at Apple and how their business model is booming. Well, they approached it completely differently. So it's pretty cool, because one of the books I'm reading, it's Start With Why, I believe. And that's what they're describing. Whenever there was one of these explorers who was planning a trip, and he was going to go on this sailing expedition, and he was thinking, oh, this is going to be really tough. I don't know how I'm going to get the right people for this. And what he did was he asked if he should make this article to get people to join, have it be about, just being nice. And, we want people with a lot of tenure and experience. Instead, he just went straight for it. And he just put in this, I don't even know what you would call it, this listing. He's looking for people who are willing to risk their lives for an expedition of a lifetime. He was just straight up. And yeah, what happened was he got people that all were in the same boat. They were willing to risk their lives, but in the end, they'll be known for something.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
Simon Sinek's so good. And in his TED Talks also about Start With Why, he's talking about Apple and why they're so successful. And they've branded themselves as, we're a company that knows the power of human connection and we want to bring people together. How we're going to do that is through leveraging technology. And what specifically? This iPhone. That's what you'll use to connect with others. But the core of their message is, we're a connecting organization because we know the power of human interaction and human connection. We connect to the why. We don't connect to the iPhone. I don't care about an iPhone. I care about what it does and how it impacts me. And that's their why, and that's why they're so successful.
With that said, Ryan, it's always fun when people say something like that. Out of the four of us, how many of us are using an Apple product to do this?
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, it's because of that. I mean, yeah.
It's powered by that connection. That's for sure.
The argument is they wouldn't be that successful if they wouldn't have branded themselves as a why. Like, why are you buying a $3,000 MacBook as opposed to maybe a $1,500 Lenovo? Well, it's because the brand awareness that they have and the brand that they've created and your tie to it isn't tied to technology. It's tied to a good feeling that you get from holding an Apple product, because you know that it's not just about technology. It's about the experience of going into an Apple store, how great they treat you when you go in there, and you know that they're sincere and wanting to better your life.
Yeah, and you're also getting quality. You know what I mean? That's the habit that they have made. Whenever they do anything, it's the best.
Yeah.
The reason why is because they put in more effort. You know what I mean? They go out and they ask, what do you want? How do you want it to work? They're doing the right things because they're putting in more effort than everyone else.
And it's
then-
so funny
Go
because
ahead.
I think about their product. It's not necessarily the best when it comes to what they offer. Like I can get a Samsung and probably do more with it if I'm very into the outputs of my phone. It's always their criticism that they always get is that their stuff is kind of simple. Well, they realize that they can make a phone and charge more for it with less really output. It's not as good of a machine as maybe some of the others, but they know that that doesn't matter as long as it's hitting on other people's why and their why, which is why they're able to do less and make more.
Yeah, definitely. So getting back to habits. Sorry, we got off on a little bit of a tangent, but it's if I were watching this and I wanted to start creating habits, what process can I take to start making that happen? So if I was asking you, Douglas, I'm trying to get into Inogen. What should I do to put myself in a good position to make that happen?
Every day, no matter what you're doing now or what you're selling now, obviously, you want to say more than just work hard at it, but diligence. I think that comes down to that one word because it's a very diligent sale. Where what Ryan said is the habit of just working hard or outworking the people around you is what truly is that magic bullet. So get in that habit now so that when you come here or compare what you're doing now to doing this job so that they'll give you the opportunity to have this job. Diligence of making even if it's 10% more dials than the person sitting next to you, because really what we're doing is connecting to as many people as we can and then creating the sales process after that. So ours, compared to maybe some other sales opportunities such as what Ryan said, ours really is the grind until you get something and then start your sales process. So there really is a bit of diligence that is necessary. And if so many more people had that, they'd be more successful at that position.
Yeah. And I think it's important to just start, you know what I mean? So whenever you're sitting at your desk, I'm sure there's people that are sitting there and, get up or try to talk to someone or get their mind off of it, instead of just picking the phone up and making the calls. Like we've all had those kind of jobs. I don't know if Meekins you have, but I know I have, where I just sat there and called 90 people just trying to get in contact with the decision maker. So
Yeah. Well, I mean, just to touch on that, when you're sitting at your desk and trying to figure out what to do in a day, and you see others around you, and you're trying to get the motivation from them, well, don't let mediocrity keep you from achieving your own goals. Oftentimes, at jobs, I've gone and I've seen what other people are doing, and I've tried to see or maybe model or take habits from what they're doing. Well, to make sure it's not the mediocre that you're looking at and hearing all the time, because that's going to translate to your work very easily. It's just like us being, that top 5 rule and keeping this friend group so close with people who are inspired by one another. Like it's the same thing at work and in your environment. If you got people who are energy vampires, try your best to just not spend a lot of time with those vampires, because they're going to suck the out of you. So
yeah. Have you guys heard of the crab effect or whatever you'd want to call it? I guess whenever you throw a crab.
Yeah, I've heard different ways of that being spoken. Yep.
So what it is if you throw a crab in boiling water and you have a bunch of them in there, one of them will try to get out and the other crabs will pull them back down. They're just pulling each other back, and that's how people are. There's a reason I surround myself with you guys, because no matter how stupid it is, I'm always posting dumb stuff. And I know with you guys, it's like, he's doing this to push us, or, you know what I mean? It's never, I'm not trying to really gloat. I just want people to, I don't know, take something from it. You know what I mean? Like, can it be perceived as a bad thing? Yeah. I mean, you're always going to have people that perceive things in a bad way, or are just negative people, like you said, vampires. I don't care.
And misery loves company, dude. Like it's so prevalent, man. Like people want to commiserate. They want you to tell them that their bad habits are fine and that they're good and that everything is just okay. It's
The biggest thing is they want you to tell them that it's not their fault. they want you to tell them that it's out of their control. People love the idea of something being out of their control, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's this unfortunate situation I'm in, and it is what it is. So for me, it's like if you're creating habits, you got to first recognize that mediocrity and honestly below mediocrity, the level of work below mediocrity is generally what's most prevalent at organizations. It's crazy how common mediocrity is.
Yeah.
Understanding that if you want to be anything but that, you're going to be on an island. You're going to be by yourself, and you got to be able to really sustain that level of really not just work ethic, but the ability to sustain that level of intensity and deliberate execution is not easy. So if you're going to do anything when it comes to starting habits, you got to understand how hard it is, understand how difficult the beginning is. For me, I was lucky enough to start with a group of very good people at Gartner, and when I did that, I was around people who were concerned about their success. So as I start to develop these habits of waking up early, of getting to the gym in the mornings, things like that, it wasn't hard for me. I had a group of guys I played basketball with almost every morning at just an LA Fitness locally that I worked with. I mean, we're there at 5:30, and that's a group of guys who are working their ass off throughout the day. So it's the people you surround yourself with. You're not always going to be as lucky as I was in that scenario. So recognize that people are constantly looking for a reason to convince themselves that it's not their fault. They're actually doing the right thing. You got to separate yourself from the pack and realize that you got to go above and beyond.
And just be clear about your goals, man. I remember when LeBron James put up a picture of Michael Phelps when he was like straight, like just about to hit the end and, hit the end of the lap. And he posted a picture of the guy next to him who was looking up at Michael Phelps to see if he was about to finish. And he's like, this is what a winner's doing, man. He's got his head down. He's not worried about the guy to the left, the guy to his right, worried about what's right in front of him. That goal is clear.
It's like getting your zone and focus. And so this brings me back to just the movie, which is The Pursuit of Happiness, which is Will Smith. And he is he's a painter. He's homeless, he's broke, and he takes an internship to be a stockbroker based on a true story. And he says, who says I can't be a stockbroker? I have the skills, I have the ability, I'm going to work my butt off until I do it. But he said something like, hey, I figured out, because it's based on the 80s, if I don't physically hang up the physical phone and I just push the button and then make another dial, I can do 8 more dials an hour, which is 64 dials more a day, which is 448 more dials a week, or 2,000 more connections he's making a month. And it's just a little bit more hard work built over a habit to do it again and again and again.
So I'm sure you guys have heard speaketh into existence. And what that is telling yourself, just like what I said earlier, I can do this. I sleeps for the week. You know what I mean? You tell yourself something enough, it just happens. You're tricking your mind into thinking that it's possible. So whenever I started in sales, we were all in college and I worked at Best Buy. I was pretty decent at it. And I remember we were all sitting in a circle and everyone's talking about like their success story the day before. And then what they wanted us to say was what our goals were. Typically, we went around the circle and everyone would say, oh, I want to be a manager of the department. Oh, I want to be a manager of this. And I remember it got to me and I said I wanted to be a medical device salesman is what I said. And everyone started laughing and they were just kind of making fun of me. And they were saying how you're not going to be able to be a medical device salesman, blah, blah, blah. Why are you even saying that? And I just didn't think anything of it. It didn't even make me flinch. I was just like, no, that's what I'm going to do. I know how I'm going to do it too. Like after this, I'm going to get different sales experience and I'm going to make it happen. And again, I wasn't the smartest guy in the world, but I know I could work hard. And that is something that was a staple in my day. And that is what I've always done. Speaketh into existence. If I want something, I'm going to tell you guys what I want to do. And I've been like that ever since we've all become friends. Like, I'm someone that will tell you, this is what I plan to do.
I think that's a habit in its own right.
Yeah. And it's a habit that I've done. And, maybe it comes off a little bit abrasive. Maybe someone might look down upon it that, God, he's kind of like a jerk because he just tells it how it is. No, I think that that's just how I am. And really, I'm one guy that would do anything for you guys, and you know that. just because I'm outspoken in certain respects, I'm not going to let the crabs bring me down.
You understand the impact that'll have. So you can't let people tell you not to do something when you understand the positive impact that will come from it. It would be foolish to stop.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, man. It's hard. It's hard to have a group of friends, kind of distance you because you have something that they may not. Maybe you're pushing yourself more than everyone else around you. You know what I mean? People see that.
Especially in work groups, when you get your tight little work group that you've got and everyone else is maybe a little lazier, everyone else doesn't have the same expectations for themselves that you do. That's the easiest way to get brought down.
Yeah.
Just as a side point, there's like a law of power, and it goes into the law of scarcity, and it's basically saying about the economy, when you take something out of the market for a period of time and then put it back in at the right moment, it gains so much value from being pulled away for such a period of time. So it's like that can be the same with like a human being. It's like if you're around people all the time, you'll get used to that. People will get used to you and being there and kind of doing the same thing over and over again. But if you pull yourself from the crowd and allow yourself to kind of think about the world in a different way, experience new things, you're probably going to be better and gain value because of that. So the law of scarcity is pretty interesting there.
It's funny, and it started a big part of that started with alcohol and the prohibition and the impact that it had when it got dumped back into the market, the opportunity that was there. It's if you're taking yourself out of those situations, if you're taking yourself out of those maybe talks about why your manager sucks or this, that, or the other thing, the woe is me conversations, you literally physically leave them and you don't participate. Well, in 3 weeks when they haven't had your feedback and you come in and they expect it and you come in with something positive, it's just kind of shock and awe. You can have some serious impact on others while you're doing a lot for yourself as well.
Yeah, they see you as the leader, man, the alpha dog, the leader of the wolf pack. It's like, great, this guy has these ideas are amazing. Where's he been? It's like, oh, that's interesting. What made them?
I think that ties in so much with habits because people are obsessed with finding someone to blame, obsessed with finding someone to give a reason as to why it's not their fault.
These leads just aren't good enough.
Literally. So it's funny how big of a deal habits have on forcing you to kind of shut up with that kind of, talk and that kind of thought. When you're going through these mornings where you're waking up at 4 to be at work by 7, which seems foolish to most. When you're going through these days of having a long day, Lopez, and having a 3-hour drive home, but then going to work out when you could just go to bed, those habits force you to really not allow yourself to take part in those conversations that are they suck the energy out of a group, out of a room, out of yourself. So
I know a lot of you guys will be able to relate to this too, but if anybody's listening and they want a good book to read on how to get disciplined, go pull up something or listen to something by Jocko Willink. Check out Jocko Willink. Discipline Equals Freedom is a quick one to get you started.
I have that book.
Yeah, and Extreme Ownership is another one that I've listened to on audiobooks. And man, it seems like the most simple concepts. He's like, extreme ownership. Be the owner of that situation. Like if something's wrong, it falls on you. You're the one it comes down to, and he'll keep drilling that into you again and again. Discipline equals freedom. Same thing, Steve. I'm sure you know about Jocko, and I'm sure you guys do too.
And David Goggins, have you guys heard of him?
Yes, I've heard of. Yeah, he's the guy who runs like miles in like the desert.
So David Goggins, he was just a normal guy. He was overweight, and if you guys have some time tomorrow, whenever you get up, I would recommend listening to him because that's one thing that these guys always talk about. He talks about callousing the mind, and he broke the pull-up record, and he did it by one pull-up at a time. Just practice, repeatedly callousing your brain, and that's something that's so important because whenever you go to run the first time, you run, and let's say you run a mile. Oh, that was tough. So next time you run 1.1 miles, and your body just becomes callous. That is just human psychology. That's how we are. Callousing your mind is just something that you can do over and over, depending on what it is. Like whenever I walk into the OR, all the nurses are typically, they're tired, they have kids and all this stuff, and I walk in and I've been up since 4 a.m., barely slept. And they'll be like, "How you doing, Steven?" I'm like, "Great, just living the dream." And I walk past them. And they always ask me, they're like, "What do you mean? Why do you always say you're living the dream?" I'm like, "Yes, I just got to keep telling myself that because maybe one day it'll happen." And they just start laughing. Like, it's funny because if you're around someone that's saying, "Oh, I'm so tired. I'm so tired. I don't do this," it honestly brings you down. So I'm just always living the dream. Why? Because I can breathe another day. I'm relatively healthy besides whenever I have alcoholic beverages every once in a while. But, there's only so much to be upset about. Life is good.
So I'm gonna play, and I think Ryan and I have talked about this.
I was going to bring it up too.
Just a little bit of devil's advocate. Steve, you're actually meaning that when you say it. But some people are the classic worker guy who's accepted that he's doing a role that he doesn't really love, or he or she, and they come into work and it's, "How you doing?" Is, "Oh, living the dream." And I'm like Ryan, I know you specifically have challenged people on that to tell them, like, "So tell me about your dream." Like, could you touch on?
Normally, it's not what you said, Lopez. It's not normally the way that you approach it, where it's like, "Oh, I'm living the dream. It's fantastic." It's normally living the dream. Another Monday. It's like, "Oh, no kidding. What's your dream? Tell me about it. I want to be able to challenge you to continue that." And I did it honestly out of frustration. And since then, it's been something that I do consistently when I hear that, because it was just one guy at work every morning. "Oh, living the dream, living the dream, living the dream." Like, no, I'm pretty certain you're not. Pretty certain this is not your dream.
Right.
So it's so funny, because the impact a little phrase like that can have from your perspective, saying it the way that you do with that tone of voice and that excitement versus living the dream. So it's an opportunity to say, well, sounds like you're not. Why? What is your dream? How can we get you to the point where you are living your dream? That's what excites me.
What's interesting though is what you're describing. Think about like just a different perspective. Like the way I say it, it's the same exact saying, but you could tell that I say it with like passion.
Exactly.
And I'm being genuine. And I know that this, like what you were describing, this isn't where I want to be. I don't want to be in Grand Rapids, Michigan. I don't want to be doing this job. I don't want to be up at 4:30 in the morning, but I know it's a step, and it's a step in the right direction.
But you could answer Ryan's question, and that's the cool thing about it, is the fact that, like, if Ryan came up to you and he was like, "Tell me about it. Like, I want to hear about your dream," and you'll be able to tell them.
Just start going. You'd be able to rattle off.
Right.
Like, here's what I'm aiming to do, and here's how this is going to help me achieve that, which is great. Like, Steve, you challenged me because I had never thought about living the dream that way. Ryan and I just talk about how we hear it, and it's mostly people who are being cynical, and they're in their own heads about
99.9% of the time someone being cynical. You're a unicorn in that. I've never heard, not a single time have I heard that phrase with that tone of voice.
True.
So you would be my 1 in 100 situation. So
Douglas,
It's not what you say, it's how you say it.
That's true. See, and that's what's interesting, because people will have some negative, like just how you guys said, like 99% of the time. But you know that there's a chance. There's a chance that there's going to be that one dude that is living the dream. And it's all relative. It's relative to how you feel. You know what I mean? Do I dive in right there and I'm like, "Oh, I've been up since 4 a.m. I've had to do work all day. Like tomorrow, I'm probably going to be up at 3. I have so much stuff I need to catch up on, but I'm going to do it." I'm going to put this ahead because I prioritize things based on time. I know that I don't need that much sleep. I can sleep at some other time instead of me, I don't know, playing a video game or doing anything else. I could take a nap. So if I need to be up at 3 o'clock, I'm going to prioritize my day in a fashion that's going to allow me to be as productive as humanly possible. And maybe I am a robot. Maybe people aren't normally like that.
I see what you're saying. And it's interesting that we use 99% as a metric, because how often in society do we hear about that 1%? The 1% who has all these things, and they're whatever, their amount of money they have is more than the rest of the 99% combined. Well, great. And we could keep talking about them like that, or we could go be proactive and learn about our own destiny. It's just like I see ads around here for Nike, and it's like Nike's been popular because of the marathon in Chicago here, but it's like they have the goals written down and the person's face behind it. And it's like, run my first marathon, and then it's crossed off. It's like, run my fastest marathon, and then that's crossed off. And it's like, be the world's fastest marathon runner, and it's like not crossed off yet. And it gives me goosebumps when I look at it. And I'm like, wow, Nike just won that. I feel it. You know. So how do we get to that 1%? How do you get yourself in that mindset of the 1%? Right? That's all habits. That's all habits.
I think we love to also with things like the 1% movement or the 99% movement that we had from a financial perspective. Then you think about people who are extremely gifted physically, who are freak athletes, a LeBron James. We love to, again, make excuses, talk about why it could never be me. Well, I'm not 6'8". I'm not a freak athlete. I could never be LeBron James. I'm not wealthy from birth. I could never be in the 1%. Well, maybe if you take a step back and quit making excuses and think to yourself, what mentally does LeBron James have going on different that other freak athletes don't have? It's his grit, his determination. He's a freak mentally. More than he's a freak physically, he's a freak mentally.
And one thing you got to think about, what you're describing, he's huge. He's an amazing athlete. Tell me you haven't seen guys walking down the street that are 7 foot that aren't professional basketball players.
Exactly.
You know, he is a freak athlete, but you don't know the countless hours he was in the gym while other people were drinking.
Mental.
You don't know the countless hours that he's sat there and shot after shot after shot. Don't get me wrong. Are there going to be people that are just gifted more so than others? Absolutely. But it's all about the craft. It's all about putting in the time. You know what I mean? It's prioritized. And one thing I wanted to bring up, and I thought about it after you guys were talking, that's a habit. It really upsets me whenever someone comes to me or talks to me about something and they're like, I don't have time. I don't have time to work out.
Yes, Steve, yes.
I don't have time to do this. You know why? Because you're not prioritizing your time. I bet you any money you're on social media more than Connor Meekins. You're not prioritizing yourself. And I think that is probably one of the most important habits. Would you guys agree?
Oh, I think it's tied in hand with every habit.
Yeah.
I mean,
For sure. No, it definitely becomes a habit when you say you don't have time. I mean, you have as much time as everybody else has. I guarantee that. Like, unless you're living in some like fourth dimension and we don't know about it and you've created your own time, like we all have that same 24. So it's like you've decided that you didn't have time to deal with those things that were of the highest importance and that these other things mattered more. So it's, you definitely create that.
Some of the motivational speakers that I listen to talk about how we have, I think that this is right, 86,400 seconds in a day. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if you're LeBron James, Muhammad Ali, whoever, everyone had the same amount of time. It's how you utilize your time is what's going to show, beneficial growth. There's times that people ask me, like, how do you work out so frequently? Like, how do you have time? Because I make it.
Make a conscious decision.
Yeah.
Just like someone makes a conscious decision to play video games for 2 hours a day, you make a conscious decision to reallocate that time to something that benefits you.
Yeah.
The mind is a muscle, and you have to exercise it like you would getting stronger in the gym. I mean, it's the same thing. I
think that's the make your bed. And if I could say anything, I think the best book on habits for me is both Make Your Bed. I think it's fantastic. But there's a book called, I think it's Darren Hardy, The Compound Effect. I've read 51 books this year so far. I'm on my last book. I'm trying to decide what to do. But The Compound Effect is probably, if not the best book I've ever read, it's definitely the best book I've read this year. And what it says is that everything is compounding on itself. So if I make a decision to make my bed this morning, that's a habit that I'm going to start doing. Well, then maybe that decision at work to do this one difficult task that I should be doing every day, that'll be an easier decision for me then. And then the decision to work out for an hour instead of 30 minutes is going to be easier for me to make. Everything compounds on itself, both good and bad. And honestly, the stuff that's bad, it compounds quicker and heavier and to a greater extent than the stuff that's good.
Oh yeah. It's investments, man. It's like look at compounding, compounding results of your investment returns. It's like, just look at a graph of somebody who invested their money when they were 25 years old and what happened when it was 65 if they just put it in some passive investment that followed, something like the S&P 500. It's like they made a shit pile of money. It's like, so the compounding returns are the same with habits, man. It's very similar, so.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So one thing we're going to do in a little bit is have our quotes. I think I'm going to have two now, just based on our discussion so far, because there's certain things that we talk about, and it just really sparks. It makes you think. So I do appreciate you guys getting on the call always. This is something that we're prioritizing. There's a reason why we're doing this. It's not only to help us, but it's to help other people. So if we could help one person, that would be awesome. If not, we just look like a bunch of idiots talking via FaceTime. It'll be cool to look back at 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
Absolutely.
I think it will help people. And that just goes to show you the power of belief too, and believing that we are helping people, because I think belief plays into habits too. Believe in something or kind of fall for anything. So I think it's powerful.
Yeah, I would agree. Do you guys have any last pointers that you wanted to bring up about any of the topics we talked about?
I think that was great. I think we touched on a lot of good stuff,
I
actually.
agree. I love that these always kind of cross paths with our different topics, and it always comes back to culminate at one point, but it's always spanning multiple topics. So no, I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think it's awesome because, we're not where we want to be. We're not as successful as we want to be. And, a lot of the times I think about, why do I even have the right to have a podcast and talk about this? I mean, in my opinion, I just think because I want to grow, and it's going to be awesome to see that progress. I want to see
That's
you
a
guys.
good point. And that's something I mentioned to Connor the other day when I gave him a call, is there's so many things that I've wanted to start and wanted to do, and maybe habits that I've wanted to start, like talking on a weekly basis with you guys. And when will we ever be at the point where we feel like we're good enough or we're sufficient to be able to be authorities on a subject? Truthfully, never, because there's always going to be someone who's gone through a little bit more. There's always going to be someone who's worked a little bit harder and gotten a little bit further than you. So I think all of these individuals who have these opportunities to speak publicly, like an Aubrey Marcus, I think of constantly. He's not sitting there thinking, am I worthy of putting this information out there? I think everyone's worthy of putting their truth out there. He always talks about truth. Well, our truth is our experiences that we've had, and there's never going to be a point where your experiences aren't good enough. They are. And you have to immediately just kind of put what you have out there and be unafraid of the fact that maybe an ego can get in the way and can think, well, I'm not quite there yet. I need to have this experience, or I need to be in management before I can talk about selling. You don't. We've all got experiences to share, and what other people are going to take from it is going to be what it's going to be. So I like that we're doing this.
Be vulnerable. Write that on your fridge. Like, dude, just like vulnerability, man, is huge. Just like go out there and share your gifts with the world.
Well, I think what happens is, how we're starting off in these conversations and it's a little tough at first. No one likes to be on camera. So it's a little strange. But once we just forget about that and we start talking, things start clicking. We have passion, and that's what's important. And one thing I was going to say is, no matter what you're doing, you have to be passionate about it. If you go to the gym and you really don't have any desire or passion to be there, yeah, you're going to work out for 30 minutes. People always walk up to me and ask, like, dude, why are you killing yourself? It's because I know if I put in the work today, it's going to pay off tomorrow. And this has all happened, in my opinion, from my father putting me in for sports. I was competing directly against other individuals, and you could see if I didn't work that hard last week and I go to wrestle someone, I can't blame it on anyone else. It's me. It's my fault. So you just have to have a passion for something and work hard for it. So.
That's a good point. That actually leads really well into the quote I was going to bring up if we're at that point.
Yeah, go ahead.
So again, from last week, I'm big into Stoicism, and Seneca is one of the best Stoic authors, one of the first, really. And he's got a quote in one of his books that we act as if we're mortal in everything that we fear, and we act as if we're immortal in everything that we desire. So anything that I'm crazy passionate about, I act like I'm immortal. If I really love feeling adrenaline and I love say, racing cars. I'm going to drive those cars like I can't die. I'm going to drive a car as fast as I can. But if I'm maybe afraid of water, for example, and I have to go surfing, well, I'm going to be super careful. I'm going to check everywhere around me. I'm not going to do anything too risky because I'm very afraid in that moment. It's the idea that get yourself to just desire success, period, and you'll act as if you're immortal. And that's really what I kind of think about constantly is like, what am I afraid of? I shouldn't be afraid of anything. I should act as if I'm immortal in that. So.
Yeah. And, you know, you'll get to even higher levels just based off of that. Because if you're not scared, I mean, what can't you do? You know what I mean? There's so many motivational speakers that talk about stuff like that. If you are able to just try something, you'll never know what you're capable of. You know what I mean? Speaking in front of people. In my job, there's a lot of the times that I have to talk about stuff and I've never done it before.
Yeah.
I've never been in front of 30 doctors at a dinner and, you know, I have to give a speech afterwards in regards to my product and I've never done it. And the way that I feel is, worst case scenario, it's terrible. Everyone laughs. I could joke about it. It won't affect me one bit. So that's awesome, man. I like that. All right, Douglas. I think Meekin's phone probably died, so.
Yeah, I'm getting to that point too. Well, there's two. One, if I don't bring up either you or Meekin's probably was, which is I don't want to call it cliche, but it's very true, and it actually helps me get through the day sometimes, so I do want to bring it up. It's the JJY, which is success isn't owned its least, and rent is due every day. So the habit of letting that resonate with you every single day, it's like I have to get up, I have to do it, I have to go to work, I have to go to the gym. You have to be good to people and build your relationships as well. We were talking about working out, but maintaining healthy relationships and giving people what they give back to you every single day.
Yeah. You have anything to say about that, Colin?
I like that. Again, what I said last week, cliches, people hate them, but they're cliches for a reason. I mean, if something's a cliche, it's not because it's untrue.
Yeah. So my quote was, depending on what they are, our habits will either make us or break us. We become what we do repeatedly. So just like what we talked about, you know, if you repeatedly come home from work and take a nap, then, you know, you're not utilizing your time. You're not prioritizing it efficiently. You know, yeah, you can do that. That's no problem. And don't get me wrong, after I go to Cleveland one weekend and then Chicago the next and then to New York the weekend after that and I'm exhausted, 100% I'm going to crash. You know what I mean? It's just something that's going to happen. So,
Yeah.
looks like we have Meekins back.
Hey, that's perfect for my quote, man. Life's 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. My phone died, but I'm back. So,
Yeah.
you know, I could have let one go, but I wanted to hop back in here and share that. But yeah.
Perfect timing, man.
Right?
Everything happens for a reason, though. And I just kind of thought about that. You know, you're going to be in circumstances that may be extremely hard. Maybe you want to give up. But I don't know if you guys have ever seen, there's an illustration with a guy picking dirt, and there's diamonds on the other side of the wall of dirt. And there's two guys. One guy is going at it like crazy, and the other guy gave up and turned and put the axe on his shoulder and walked the other way.
Yeah.
You never know where the gold is, where the diamonds are. You know, just because it's hard doesn't mean you got to stop. You could be right on the edge of greatness. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, to those people who are going through something tough too, like, just remember it could be that close. And like you're right there most of the time. So just get up, make that challenging decision, go make your bed, and like everything else will fall into place. And just keep going.
Yeah. I couldn't find the other quote that I wanted to talk about. It had to do with prioritizing time. I couldn't find it, so I'll have to bring it up in one of the next videos. But
We touched on it. You know, we went into detail on the topic of time and those excuses. So how they build on themselves.
Toss the quote in the description when you find it.
all right,
Yeah.
we'll do.
For sure.
Yeah, and if anyone has to comment or anything, just let us know, and we're more than happy to respond to that. So again, I appreciate you guys being on the call. I look forward to the one next week, and hope you guys have a great Sunday. Thanks, guys.
Always.
Hey, boys.